Good afternoon. So my job is to influence you all to be more fearless. And being fearless is a great habit to develop. It's really good for each of us individually, and it's so incredibly important for our global community. Like most people who take on a challenge, I didn't really set out to be fearless. I saw a problem, I thought I had a solution, and I just set off to see what I could do. But now I understand that the people and events that shaped my life, they really prepared me to handle the challenge that I would face. So this is my dad. He lied about his age to join the Navy during World War II. He fought in the Pacific. He was injured. He came home to raise his family. Soon after I was born, my mother developed a very severe mental illness. And she really couldn't take care of us, my three brothers and I. And so when my parents divorced a few years later, my dad had to fight in court to keep custody of us so that he could protect us and take care of us. And he did. When I was 15, my older brother David drowned, saving his girlfriend's life. And I was very close to my brother, and I shut down. That's what we do. Often in the face of trauma, we shut down. And my dad had to reach inside of me, into my despair, through his pain, his fear, his loss, to save me. And he did. It's not surprising that I went into the field of psychology because I was interested in learning about mental health issues and the factors that affect us. And I wanted to work with people who were suffering and who were struggling, people who had gone through loss and trauma. And I learned in graduate school techniques that could help me help others overcome their challenges. When I was in graduate school, my dad died, and that was a shock. And again, I felt completely at a loss. I didn't know what to do, but somehow, and now I know that I drew upon what my dad had taught me so that I could survive the loss of him. So I finished, I got my PhD, I went into clinical practice, and I started working with children and families and adults to help them overcome the issues in their lives. And somewhere along the way, I started to have this feeling, and I thought, you know, maybe there's something more that I can do. Maybe I can use my skills and abilities to do something even more than I was doing right then. I didn't know what it was, I didn't know what that would look like, but I was open to the idea. And even though I was very successful professionally, my marriage was not so successful. I had suffered a lot of collateral damage because of the losses in my own life. And so just about the time that I was becoming a divorced single mom, the wars from Iraq and Afghanistan were coming home. And mental health professionals were becoming concerned about the impact of those wars on soldiers and also on their families. And so I saw a need, and the need was, how do we as a society make sure that those who serve our country come home and receive the care and support that they need and deserve? So I decided to ask my colleagues in the mental health community, several 100,000 of them, to step up and give some of their time to support those who serve and their families. And they are. That's what they're doing. And so I look back now and I understand there were other factors that sort of pushed me in that direction. One was that I grew up during the Vietnam War, and I saw what happened to those veterans. We didn't take care of them, and there are Vietnam veterans today who continue to suffer because their wounds never healed. And I knew that if we could create a system where all of those who came home from war could receive the care that they needed and deserved, we could save a generation. And I also wanted, I very much wanted, my two daughters to see the power of one. What can happen if one person steps up to take on a challenge? And so there were lots of obstacles to building a nonprofit organization. Namely, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I learned, and with a lot of help and a lot of friends, built an organization that now has over 6,500 mental health professionals who give their time selflessly to care for those who serve and their families. And we've given out 70,000 hours of care. And so I've been thinking lately, well, maybe there's more that I can do to encourage others to be fearless, to encourage others to step up and take on a challenge when they see it. Because it's really, really good for us. It gives us a sense of power, makes us feel confident, it builds our self-esteem. And if we can face adversity and be fearless in the face of illness and pain and suffering, well, that is a very, very powerful medicine indeed. So I'm a huge believer in understanding and in action. And I feel like, if we understand issues, then we tend to act more appropriately. And so I have a few thoughts to share about this whole sort of space of being fearless, and hopefully they'll be helpful. So it seems to me it's important to start out understanding what it is that we fear, what gets in our way. Often it's the psychological issues that prevent us from being able to take a risk, to step up in the face of a challenge. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of making a mistake. We're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of looking foolish. We're afraid of being exposed, kind of like how I feel standing out here in front of several hundred people. But somehow, if we can push forward, then in fact we can make changes and we can do amazing things. It's also important to understand, what does it mean to be fearless? When my girls were younger, I used to tell them that being brave doesn't mean that you're not afraid. It means that you're afraid and you do it anyway. And people who are fearless, they just step into the challenge. They just take it on. And the goal that they are looking at, the goal that they see, is more important than any of the fears that are bouncing around in their heads. Anyone can be fearless. I first realized that I could be fearless probably within seconds after my oldest daughter was born. I saw her, and I knew that I would step in front of a bus without hesitating to save her. And I felt that same thing the minute that her younger sister was born. And that's an amazing feeling, to know that I would do that without even hesitating to take care of her. Sometimes being fearless does have unintentional consequences, and we need to be aware of that as we encourage each other to go out there and just take things on. We see this in our soldiers as they come home from war. They're so brave. They do so much. They protect civilians. They rescue their buddies. They save children. And sometimes those things that they do come home to haunt them. And they're scared and they're uncertain and they suffer and their families suffer because they don't understand what's going on. Our ability to deal with our fears about ourselves, generally, it has to do with how we see ourselves. So if we believe that we are only strong and we're only capable and we're only smart, it's really hard to tolerate that maybe we're also vulnerable and at times we need help. But luckily, there's so much that we can now do to help our soldiers understand there's more than one way to be fearless. We seem to really flock, though, to those who are fearless. We admire them, we value them, we want to be like them. And we keep creating new images. This is Katniss Everdeen from the blockbuster hit The Hunger Games. And before her came another hero, Harry Potter, a wonderful hero. And before him, there was the entire world that I read about when I was a kid, and that was The Lord of the Rings. And again, you can see we keep creating heroes because we want to be like them. And we all grew up watching a very brave little girl on her journey on the yellow brick road. So why do we want to be like these people? Why do we strive to be fearless in the first place? Because it gives us a sense of pride, of accomplishment. It lets us know that we can overcome amazing odds. And fortunately, there's a really cool thing about being fearless, about being brave, about taking on challenges. It's very reinforcing. The more you do, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you do. It's kind of like eating well and exercising. It's a healthy lifestyle. So we can all just be fearless when we're out there exercising as well. We see this kind of desire to continue to have meaning and to take on challenges with our veterans. Many of them come home and they want to continue to serve in their communities. This is a picture of a wonderful organization called Team Rubicon. Started by a couple of veterans. They knew that when they got home, they weren't done serving. Team Rubicon steps up in the face of disaster, at home or abroad. They were in Haiti. They were in the Midwest when we had tornadoes. It's an amazing thing that they do. And they create the conditions that allow others to feel brave, to take on challenges. That's another thing to look for, too, as we think about, okay, how do we encourage this? Sometimes it's a sense of a shared mission that we have with others, like our soldiers, like the veterans who come home. We see this also with our firemen, our policemen. There's a sense of duty that they share. And because of that, they then are able to engage in acts of bravery and fearlessness that we admire. And finally, again, looking at our service members and how they behave, they kind of combine it all. It's a sense of duty, it's a shared mission, and they're extremely patriotic. All of these things allow them to step up and take the challenge and do what they need to do. But sometimes we are fearless because we are the only one in that space that can do what needs to be done. So we'll see how many of you remember this image. This is from my early adult years. This is Sigourney Weaver in the role of Ellen Ripley in the movie Aliens. I saw that movie. It scared me to death, but I was so impressed with this character. For those of you who didn't see this movie, here's what happens. So this woman, Ripley, lands on this asteroid, right? And everybody is like gone. The whole colony is wiped out except for this little kid. And she can't talk because she's been traumatized. So Ripley tells her, I'm never going to let anything else bad happen to you. Bad thing to do. So as bad luck would have it, and Hollywood writing, of course the little girl is snatched by the alien. And Ripley spends the rest of the movie fighting these horrific creatures. Wow, that's fearless. So if we want to encourage fearlessness, which I believe we should, then what do we need to think about? How can we make that happen for individuals who might care and might want to push themselves a little bit? So obviously it'll be different for everyone, but there are certain things to keep in mind. For example, build on your successes. Pay attention when you take a little step or a big step. Give yourself credit. We don't do that enough. We look to others to see, are we pleasing you? But we should really look inside. Are we proud of ourselves? Are we proud of our own accomplishments? Tell each other what you're thinking, what challenges you see, what things you think need to be done, because if you say it out loud, it's harder to ignore your own dreams. Remember the power of relationships. Cultivate healthy relationships. This is my family. I met my husband doing the work of Give an Hour. He's a psychologist as well. He heard about what I was doing. He was the first person who said to me, I'm proud of you. He is a wonderful partner to me. He's a wonderful, wonderful father to our girls. And I would have never met him had I been afraid to take a risk. And speaking of our children, we can raise fearless children. Look for opportunities to talk to them about difficult things. They will ask us to promise that we will always be there for them. We can't make that promise. But what we can do is we can tell them that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they're okay. We're going to do everything we can to make sure there are other people in their lives who will take care of them if we're not there. And we can tell them that we have faith in them, that we know that they can take care of themselves, they can take care of each other. My dad did a great job preparing me to handle the challenges that would come. He did a great job preparing me to help others handle things that would come. He did a great job preparing me to be fearless when I needed to be. So why does any of this matter? Why do we care if people are fearless or step up, take challenges, take risks? Because our world is an extremely complex and scary place at times. The issues that are upon us now need all of us to step up, do a little bit, do a lot. We need fearless leaders. We need those who will speak truth to power. I'm reminded now of a young girl in Pakistan, 15 years old, named Malala, who stepped up and she spoke to the power, the Taliban, because she didn't want to be denied an education. We can make these changes because we're all leaders in our own space. We have the potential. And as a very wise and fearless man once said, everybody can be great because anyone can serve. And I would add, and we can all be fearless. Thank you very much.